This lesson is a continuation of God's instruction to Moses on the construction of the tabernacle, the movable place of worship that they will use as they journey toward the promised land. And of course, the tabernacle is readily taken down and can be moved. God started out with instructions for the furnishings, the Ark of the Covenant, and the altar, and then he begins in Exodus chapter 26 to tell Moses how he is to make the inner part of the tabernacle, inner hangings. Verse 1, Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet, with cherubim of cunning work shalt thou make them. Any cloth that was red would have been dyed using an insect shell, and this insect, when it was crushed, put forth a red liquid. It would have taken a great many of these insects to produce very many yards of cloth. And the purple, of course, is from a small shellfish, and it would have taken a very large number of them to dye very much cloth. And blue, of course, would have also been a difficult dye or pigment to obtain in those days from natural elements. Common earth tones, browns, ochres, grays would have been easily obtained. These colors were of great price. And the cherubim made with cunning, this would have been those cherubim woven in, as in tapestry making. It would have required skilled handiwork. 2. The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits, and every one of the curtains shall have one measure. So we are going to have 10 widths of cloth here, and it would have been, when it was all put together, 42 feet, by 6 feet in sets of 5. The 5 curtains shall be coupled together one to another, and another 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another in sets of 5. 4. And thou shalt make loops of blue upon the edge of the one curtain from the selvage in the coupling, and likewise thou shalt make in the uttermost edge of another curtain in the coupling of the second. He is telling them how they are to string these panels together. 50 loops shalt thou make in one curtain, and 50 loops shalt thou make in the edge of the one curtain that is in the coupling of the second, that the loops may take hold one of another. In other words, these loops will all be able to take hold or to be connected together. 50 loops on each side. 6. And thou shalt make 50 tokes of gold, and those are hooks, and couple the curtains together with the tokes or the hooks, and it shall be one tabernacle. The entire tabernacle would have been 42 feet by 60 feet in size, and it would have been in 2 parts, so it could easily come down and be transported. 7 through 14 is going to discuss the outer parts of the tabernacle, which will protect this beautiful cloth and fine tapestry work that is on the interior. 7, and thou shalt make curtains of goat's hair to be a covering upon the tabernacle. 11 curtains shalt thou make. Going to make 11. A goat's hair tent work was common, and the Bedouin tents, even in fairly modern times, used this goat hair. It would have been a very protective element to guard the inner curtains from the weather and the elements. 8. The length of one curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits, and the 11 curtains shall all be of one measure. All of it will be together. Now, the curtains on the outside are 45 feet long. They're 3 feet longer than the interior, and this, of course, would be a protective means. 9, and thou shalt couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and shall double the 6th curtain in the forefront of the tabernacle. Rather than 5 and 5, we are now going to have 5 and 6, and the front of the 6th one is to be doubled, and that is to make a door opening that can pull back at the front of the tabernacle. 10, and thou shalt make 50 loops on the edge of one curtain that is outmost in the coupling, and 50 loops in the edge of the curtain which coupleth the second. So they're going to be coupled together with these loops that are sewn onto the panels. 11, and thou shalt make 50 takas of brass. Now, you're going to use brass hooks on the outside, and put the takas or the hooks into the loops and couple the tent together that it may be one. In other words, these panels, both the inside and the outside, were finished at the top with loops, and these hooks looped these loops together so that they were one. 12, and the remnant that remaineth of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remaineth, shall hang over the back side of the tabernacle. And again, a protective measure. 13, and a cubit on one side and a cubit on the other of that which remaineth in the length of the curtains of the tent, it shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, and on this side and on that side to cover it. This segment of the outer covering is to give the measurements, and it will be 45 feet by 60 and hooked together with brass or copper. 14, and thou shalt make a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering above of badger's skins. The redness would come from the tanning process. Some translations will give the covering to have been made of leather from sea cows. Sea cows were in the Red Sea, and their tanned leather was used to make shoes and sandals. And I looked up these words in the Strong, James L. Strong, whose work compassed a lifetime taking these English words back to the original language and a ram skin could have just been something strong, not necessarily perhaps a he-goat. So perhaps they did use this tanned skin of this sea cow. It would have certainly provided quite a copious amount of leather, as they were rather large creatures. 15. And thou shalt make, now we're going to get into the bars and the boards. We now have the hangings, inside hangings, outside hangings, and the bars and the boards are going to be the support system for this tabernacle. And the best that can be understood is that the language is such that we are unsure precisely the structure of this tabernacle. There are some who say that it was flat, and others who say that it had a peaked top. 15. And thou shalt make boards for the tabernacle of shittim wood standing up. And these shittim wood is the acacia tree, which would have grown in that area, and the acacia is a wood that is not susceptible to decay or to insects, as it kind of stores waste in its center, and it is a very dense wood. So this particular wood would have had longevity, much as a cypress in our world or a western red cedar that is water and insect resistant. 16. 10 cubits shall be the length of the board, and a cubit and a half shall be the breadth of the board. So these are going to be 15 feet high and 27 inches wide, 9 inches thick to support this tabernacle. Josephus says that the framework was solid, and James L. Strong insists that it was not solid but a frame, and it certainly would seem that a frame would be more fitting to showcase the beauty of the hangings. 17. 2 tenons shall there be in one board, set in order one against another. Thus shalt thou make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And this is how it's to be done. 2 tenons in one board, and one against another. You can see how Josephus may have thought it was solid. 18. And thou shalt make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards on the south side southward. 19. And thou shalt make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tabernacle, on the north side, there shall be 20 boards. So 20 boards on north, 20 boards on south. 21. And there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets under another board. 22. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward, thou shalt make 6 boards. So we've got 20 across the north and south, and now we're going to have 6 on the east. 23. And 2 boards shalt thou make for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. So he's telling them you're going to have 2 boards put together in each of the corners. 24. And they shall be coupled together beneath, and they shall be coupled together above the head of it unto one ring. Thus shall it be for them both. They shall be for the two corners, secured top and bottom with rings. 25. And they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets under another board. So he is telling them exactly the use of the sockets, how many, so that the tabernacle frame will be adequately sturdy. This is God doing the engineering and the plan work and giving the instructions, possibly even a drawing, to Moses. 26. Now we're going to get the bars. We have the uprights of the boards that are made of this acacia wood, and 26 is going to discuss the beginning of the bars or the cross sections. And thou shalt make bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle. So we're going to have 5 bars going across on the sides, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle for the 2 sides westward. So we're going to have 5 bars going across to connect the upright boards. 27 and 28. And the middle bar in the midst of the board shall reach from end to end. So you've got to have a bar here that will go from one end to the other. This would have been the main support. 29. And thou shalt overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold for places for the bars, and thou shalt overlay the bars with gold. Now, gold is a metal that does not tarnish. And of course, when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they came with plenty of gold and silver and elements of worth. 30. And thou shalt rear up the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof, which was showed thee in the mount. In other words, it would be laid out on the ground like a big circus tent, let's say. It would have been laid out with all the vertical supports and the upper supports. And then God said to Moses, I told you how to raise it up from the ground to get that framework standing, so that then the interior and the exterior hangings can be put into place. 31. Now we're going to discuss the making of the veil. And the veil, of course, was the inner part of the tabernacle and would have been the holiest part of it. And thou shalt make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen of cunning work with cherubim shall it be made. Again, it's going to be beautifully woven and embroidered and made of this beautifully dyed fabric from colors that were rare and difficult to procure. 32. And thou shalt hang it upon 4 pillars of shittim wood overlaid with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold upon the 4 sockets of silver. This veil is going to be hung then on 4 pillars of this acacia wood, uh, overlaid with gold, and hung with hooks of gold and sockets of silver. 33. And thou shalt hang up the veil under the tocks or the hooks, that thou mayest bring in thither within the veil the ark of the testimony, and the veil shall divide unto you between the holy place and the most holy. This veil separated the holy from the holy of holiest, and that same veil was used in the temple when it was eventually erected in the days of Solomon. The Holy of Holies separated by this veil, and the veil, of course, contained the Ark of the Covenant. And the veil, the Holy of Holies, as it came to be laid out by God, was only entered one time a year, and it was entered by the high priest during the Feast of Tabernacles in September on the Day of Atonement. Now, that veil in the temple in Jerusalem on the hour of the crucifixion of Jesus, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock was the watch time during which at Passover Eve the sacrificial lamb was killed, and the high priest would have been in the holy place, not in the Holy of Holies, but he would have been where he could see that veil. And of course, we know from the New Testament that at the death of Jesus, that veil rent from top to bottom. We no longer needed the high priest to go in because Jesus opened the veil that we all might freely through him go into God. 34. And thou shalt put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. And the previous chapter about the furnishings told us about the mercy seat, a covering here, not a lid, a covering with cherubim with wings that went out over this Ark of the Covenant. 35. And thou shalt set the table without the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the side of the tabernacle toward the south. And thou shalt put the table on the north side. And the previous chapter telling us how the furnishings for the tabernacle were made. Then we were told how the table was made with the rings for its transport, and now we're told, or Moses is told by God exactly where the table would be, and the golden candlesticks that were made with blossoms and buds. 36. And thou shalt make a hanging for the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needlework. This opening to the Holy of Holies, this would have had that precious cloth, purple and red and blue, and here there would have been embroidered motifs on the curtains. 37. And thou shalt make 4 hangings, 5 pillars of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold, and their hooks shall be of gold. and thou shalt cast 5 sockets of brass. In other words, he has told them how that they will be able to hang this veil and then move the veil when it is necessary for them to pack up and move as they are going toward the promised land 40 years. And this doorway is the inner covering there for this Holy of Holies. And as I said, scholars are not perfectly sure. There are, of course, drawings of the tabernacle, and there are several conjectures about the actual appearance of the tabernacle, but we do see that God gave Moses very explicit directions. And think about the materials. The acacia wood, of course, that was brought, you will learn later, that persons could bring that acacia wood as an offering, and that the fact that that wood was decay and insect proof is important. It was overlaid with gold, and gold was used to make some of the hooks, and silver for the sockets, and brass. They were using materials that would last, and also the hangings, the use of this cloth that took many small creatures to produce a dye would tell us that the tabernacle was not just a shabby old tent, that it was something spectacular and beautiful. And God Himself has instructed Moses what to use and how to construct it, exactly the length, and it is engineered such that it would be very easily taken down and slipped onto carrying poles and transported in sections. Also, it is important for us to realize when we think about our churches and the amount of beauty, stained glass, and the Basilica in Rome, that altar crafted of gold. And we are not to set up a shabby kind of edifice for worship, because here God instructed them to use the best. And it behooves us to make sure that our church buildings are kept up, that they are in good repair, and that they are of the best that we can supply. I remember once in a meeting, and the parsonage was being discussed, and there was some kind of a problem with a bathroom. Maybe there was more than one bathroom in the home, and one of the showers did not work. And a person on the committee said, "It's good enough." And unfortunately, that person lived in a very high quality home, and a non-working shower would not have been good enough for her. So I think we have a lesson here in how we care for and how we construct our places of worship. This video is an outreach of the United Methodist Church in Essex, Missouri.